Hey everyone, it's Types, and today I have a super cool video that I think you're going to enjoy a lot, and I am certainly enjoying making and crafting, and I put together 5 cards or sets of cards for Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet, and this is how I expect to see them kind of developed in the TCG, and just wanted to share them with you, see what you thought about them. These are the first cards I've made by myself, so I'm not sure how balanced they are or if the wordings are quite right. But I did my best, and I think they turned out really cool, and I think you're all going to enjoy them. Starting off with Maushold, one of the coolest Pokemon, and also best Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet. Family of mice. Pretty basic idea, but pretty fun. And it's got a signature attack, Population Bomb. And now this is, in the video game, you pretty much have like 10 attacks and a chance of hitting between 1 and 10 of them. So we're trying to simulate something similar with Maushold here. With its attack Population Bomb, flip 4 coins for each of your Maushold in play, so up to 16 coins. It does 20 per head. So on average, this will be hitting, for each Maushold, it'll be hitting, I think, 40 damage, anywhere between 0 and 80 per Maushold. So that's really interesting, meaning that you can hit with a full bench an average of 160, and that's really solid for 2 energy on a basic. Relatively low health here, and not too much else going for it. But overall, a really solid attack, and I think it's kind of how they're going to implement it with coin flips because of that random element, and also with ability to hit really high damage, as it's one of the best Pokemon in the video game right now, I believe. I don't play the video games, but I've seen some competitive content on them. So Maushold, really cool looking here, able to do, as I said, 160, up to 320 for 2 energy on a basic. That's just insane. And we're going to have double turbo energy around, so this could hit still 300 for 1 attachment, which is just insane. You need to recover them, though, consistently with something like Rescue Carrier in order to keep up this high damage output. We're going to also be losing coin flip stuff like Glimwood Tangle. So it might get a bit sketchy, but you shouldn't be hitting much lower than 100 damage. As I said, 16 coin flips. It's also quite a lot, but I think it's going to be very fun. Simulating that type of Maractus deck where you just have a ton of coins, you flip them, and I think it'll be really fun. And we should be expecting a really powerful Maushold card, something very similar to this. My next card here, and this is actually 2 cards, and I struggled writing these 2 a lot. But they are Palafin, and these are, I'm not sure if they're my favorite Pokemon, but they're some of the coolest from the new set, certainly. And it's pretty much a hero, and I realize I messed up now. It's supposed to be Zero Form Palafin and Hero Form Palafin, so the one on the left should be a Zero Form. I realize I made a slight mistake. It doesn't change the ruling of the card or the effect or anything, but just a slight mistake there. They're both called Palafin as the Pokemon, so you can only play 4 of them in total. But Zero Form Palafin's ability, 0 to Hero, says, when this Pokemon moves from the active to the bench, during your turn, you may switch this with a Palafin in your hand, and any stuff attached stays, which is pretty normal, and so that's really interesting, meaning that you can get into this other Palafin with an insane stat line here, in the Hero Form, which says, put this Pokemon into play only with the effect of Palafin's 0 to Hero ability. So that means that you can't evolve into this. You can't Zoroark into this. You can't like Arceus, Ace in the Hole into this. But it has insane stats. So the Hero Form here has 240 health, which is twice as much as the Zero Form's 120. Also, its flip turn attack, instead of doing 60, will now do 180 for only 1 water. So this is insane, but it's a stage 1 with some extra steps. So it's a bit clunky to use, and that's obviously problematic. So the issue is the big setup cost, but then really great payoff, and only 1 energy is amazing. You can only play, though, say 2 of the Zero Form and 2 of the Hero Form. And again, sorry for making... accidentally calling the Zero Form the Hero Form, so a bit confusing there, but you can only have 4 of them in total because they're all just called Palafin. So, and arguably the form should be after the name Palafin, but quite simply the creation software wouldn't allow that. So, and I'll have the link down below to the creation software if you want to make cards of your own. I can't actually confirm that it's safe, so use it at your own risks, but it was really useful for me. So pretty much you want to set up the Hero Form Palafin, and you have an amazing hit and run. The Zero Form isn't that bad. 60 hit and run for 1 on the stage 1 is okay, but that 180 is massive. It shouldn't be getting one shot, and it really just can stand its own. But obviously needing to switch in from the active to the bench is a big cost. So say you don't start that Finizen, which evolves into the Palafin, now you need to get that into the active. Of course, evolve it, now switch it back to the bench, and then set it back into the hero form back into the active again. So that's up to 3 switches in addition to an evolution and another card in your hand, and this is really clunky all of a sudden. But as I said, the payoff is absolutely insane, and will hopefully balance it out. Now, this is one of the best Pokemon, debatably the best in the video game. I am focusing on, currently in this video, the best video game Pokemon, and Gholdengo is certainly one of those. Its ability, good as gold, which is really interesting, saying prevent all effects of attacks done to all of your Pokemon, and then the basic make it rain attack, just doing 100 for 2 on stage 1 is pretty solid. Not amazing, but not bad either. But the real focus here is its ability, which is just, it's really good. I think you'll underestimate it, but it actually prevents attack effects of your own attacks. So take something like Zacian V. And that is a really good Pokemon, but it can't attack multiple turns in a row, and that's a big issue. So it's not the biggest issue, but it's certainly a noticeable downside. Pop Gholdengo, and I know Zacian will be rotating by the time this Gholdengo would come out, but this is just an example. Now your Zacian isn't affected by that effective attack. So pretty much all your Pokemon can attack. Zacian can attack back-to-back turns, stuff like that. Your opponent can't remove your energy with their attacks or something like that. And pretty much, it's just insane. You're immune to effects of your opponent's attacks, which we've seen a number of times with stuff like, I don't know, I think we've seen it with Espeon VMAX recently, which has seen some play. But being able to be immune to effects of your own attacks is really interesting. Don't go looking for Pokemon like Arceus V-Star that accelerate energy, because that's going to get stopped by Gholdengo. But any negative effect that happens, other than, of course, self-damage, because damage is not an effect, will be stopped by Good as Gold. So this is just insane in certain decks. I haven't thought out too many of the options. It might be broken, I'm not sure. But certainly something like Zacian V that can't attack multiple turns in a row gets a nice buff with this Gholdengo here. And there are certainly a ton of others, and it just provides safety from your opponent's effects, like your Volatile Amazing Rare and a Sableye that spreads damage and stuff like that. Moving on to the fourth set of Pokemon here. This is, well, the fourth. I don't know what I'm saying, but we got Tatsugiri and Dondozo. These are also some of the coolest design Pokemon. They're all some of the coolest, right? Those are the ones I've chosen. But we see Tatsugiri with its mere 40 HP and 10 for 1, really underwhelming. But then, I realized Dondozo. Oh no, I made another small mistake here. Dondozo's weakness should probably be lightning. Water weakness isn't quite right, but whatever. Let's ignore that. Ignore that for now. As I said, these are my first Pokemon cards I've made. So we can see Tatsugiri with its ability Commander. So if you have Dondozo in play, and this is, I don't think this is worded quite right, but there's a lot to fit in here, and I think it's pretty accurate. So if you have Dondozo in play, which is the one on the right, Dondozo gets 100 HP and 100 more HP. It does 50 more damage to your opponent's active. But then you can't have more than one bench Pokemon. So that would mean the only Pokemon you can have in play are Tatsugiri and Dondozo. And if you have more than 2 bench Pokemon, I have 2 or more bench Pokemon, aka if you have more than 1, then you just discard bench Pokemon until you have 1 on your bench. And then it has a 5th effect here, which is quite a lot, obviously. Prevent all damage and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. So this means you'll have a big Dondozo with 250 health. You stick a cape or a big charm or something that's not rotating, it can get even bigger, but 250 is massive. It's like Blissey V territory, where it will struggle to get one-shotted. And then you're going to see Tatsugiri also being immune to effects of attacks and damage. So that's pretty crazy, because now your board state will be very difficult to disrupt. And once they get through that Dondozo, presumably they won't be KOing your Tatsugiri. If they KO both your Dondozo and your Tatsugiri, though, you're just going to lose because you have no other Pokemon in play. So that's kind of crazy, but you just see it's going to be really hard to get through this Dondozo, real tank, but then you can't set up anything else in the back. You can theoretically use Crobass and Luminias and stuff to draw into your Tatsugiri, then sweep them all away when you play it. But it's a lot of awkward stuff as soon as it's set up. Luckily, Dondozo's attacks are pretty cheap. You see Order Up, which is, I think, its signature. I don't know. I don't play the games, but Order Up says you can only use this attack if Tatsugiri is on your bench, which is really the only time you want to be playing them. They're only good together. Dondozo's 150 health isn't bad, but certainly Order Up gives it a nice buff. And it says heal from this Pokemon the same amount equal to the HP of your bench Tatsugiri times 4. So pretty much, I'm planning on. Realistically, I think they're going to make different forms of Tatsugiri that have slightly different effects. But for example, this Tatsugiri with 40 health, you'll be healing 160 damage. Now that I think about that, that's probably too much. It should probably be times 2 or times 3 maybe. It does 100 damage minus the HP of your bench Tatsugiri. So that means you're only going to be dealing 60. So maybe it's fair. 60 for one, and then healing 160 seems like a lot. I'm not sure. I might need to mess with it a little, but Order Up is really interesting, meaning that you can have different Tatsugiris with different HP amounts, healing different amounts, and then dealing different amounts. So its damage output isn't that high, but its healing factor is really high. And you obviously see the combo of Tatsugiri and Dondozo here becoming really insane, setting up this massive Pokemon that your opponent's going to struggle to deal with. But then we see if you want to do bigger damage, but sacrifice some of your HP, you got Wave Crash. For a bit more damage, Water Colorless, it deals 150 damage to your opponent, then 50 to itself. So obviously, then you're setting yourself up to get KO'd. If your opponent can hit 200 damage into you, even with that Tatsugiri buff, you're going to get KO'd. So that's pretty scary. You need to have a nice balance between Order Up and Wave Crash, healing, dealing damage, stuff like that. So overall, I think this is a really cool combination. Pokemon's definitely going to be implementing Tatsugiri and Dondozo in some combo. Hopefully something really interesting like this. This is admittedly a bit complicated, so maybe not quite like this. I forgot, I guess, that Tatsugiri buffs the damage output. So it'll actually be doing 200 damage for 2. Or if you use Order Up, you'll be doing how much? 110. So actually really solid. I think this definitely needs to get nerfed some. I want to go big or go home, though, so really big health, really big damage, and just fun stuff. But no bench Pokemon means if your opponent, say, sets up Inteleon Pings, knocks out your Tatsugiri with Inteleon Pings, which they can do because it's on attack, then your Dondozo's health is going to plummet, and then they can just KO that and win. So big risk, big reward. I think really fun, and I'm excited to see how Pokemon's going to implement it. But I think, and I really hope that they're going to implement it very similarly to this, because it's really fun, and I'm just really looking forward to it. Lastly, we have probably my favorite Pokemon from the new game, and also there wasn't really any good art of this Pokemon, and the regular art's not that interesting. So, but it's Garganacl, which is sometimes called Minecraft Donkey Kong. So he's one of my favorite Pokemon from the new, or as I said, my favorite Pokemon from the new game, and he has two like effects, an ability and an attack here that are admittedly not the most interesting. In the video game, he's not the most interesting. In the TCG, I don't expect anything crazy, but I think something like this would be nice. This is stage 2, so obviously a bunch of time needs to be spent to set him up, but 180 HP, very solid for a stage 2. Then ability Purifying Salt. Of course, Garganacl, the NaCl, the Salt Pokemon, really fun, but it takes 30 less from attacks, 30 less damage, and also effects of attacks, and other than that aren't done to this Pokemon, and also it can't be affected by special conditions. So pretty much if your opponent's trying to poison you, if they're trying to instant KO you with your Voltful, or if they're just hitting at you, the damage will be reduced. So pretty much you're very tanky, very survivable, which is really fun, very common with fighting Pokemon, so that's really nice. Then you also have an attack Salt here, doing 100 damage for fighting colorless, not that good. But then your opponent's active is poisoned, and it does 5 damage counters instead of 1. So that's really solid. Obviously, something like Garganacl versus another Garganacl will take quite a while, because you're only doing, how much? You're doing 70 and no extra effects. But Garganacl, solid damage output, very survivable, high survivability. So this is a Pokemon I'm interested in seeing how they're going to implement. It might be better as a Trash Slice EX or something like that, mixing up typing a bit. But overall, I'm really excited to see what Pokemon's going to do with these new Pokemon. And if you have any questions about the art, I cited the art on the cards as much as I could, but in some cases I wasn't able to, unfortunately. And then, as I said, the programming or the software for creating this should be linked in the description. As I said, I cannot guarantee its safety, but you can check that out, and hopefully you enjoy these. Comment down below how you think these Pokemon will be implemented and what you think of my designs. I think they're really solid. Obviously, I've made a few mistakes here and there, but I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to make some more custom cards. Comment down below if you're interested in that. And obviously, if you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.